You're now live.
Good evening, everyone. Today is March 24th, 2021. And my name is Robert Cagnetta, and this is a meeting of the South Kingstown, Rhode Island Zoning Board of Review. Members present tonight are Thomas Daniels, our Vice Chairman, Richard Jerzak, Bill Rosen, and Casey Charkowick, who is our alternate number one. Also present are Jamie Gorman, the South Kingstown Building Zoning building official, Amy Goins, the South Kingstown Legal Counsel, and Jessica Spence, the Administrative Support Associate. This board is made up of 7 people, and 5 of them are regular voting members. 5 members are required to be present to vote. And in the event one of the 5 regular members is not present, an alternate will step in. And in this case, Mr. Charkowick will step in tonight. So all 5 that are here will be voting. The applicants here are either for variance, dimensional, or use, or to seek a special use permit. The board is a quasi-judicial body created by the South Kingstown Ordinance pursuant to state statutes. We don't follow strict rules of evidence, and we operate in what we believe to be in a fair and equitable manner. We'll give everyone a chance to speak, unless you're kind of off point or you're sort of repeating the same thing over and over. So we really appreciate it if you can stay brief and on point. We do our best not to argue, and we keep things civil, and we try to have our last petition by 10 p.m. Your petition is called. Please come forward and clearly state your name and spell it for the record. And then you'll be asked to take an oath to tell the truth, and then you will present your petition along with any other witnesses to testify in support. The board will then ask you your witnesses and you questions. After the petitioner has presented their testimony, anyone with questions about the application or wanting to support or oppose the petition will be asked to raise their hand, and we'll explain how to do that. You will also be asked to identify yourself, be sworn in, and then present your testimony, which could be followed up by questions from the board. Don't ask any direct questions to the petitioner or any of the witnesses. We'll help clarify some of the questions and pass that along. After hearing all the testimony and before a vote is taken, board members will be asked to openly discuss the evidence presented. So you are aware, the variances or special use permits require 4 of 5 voting members to vote in favor of it in order for the petition to be granted. Board members will ask a lot of questions, and for a good reason. We cannot just grant anything we choose. There are rules to follow per our ordinance for the South Kingstown ordinance. You must give testimony to support certain facts to allow your request to be approved. We have dimensional variances and special use. I do believe dimensional. Yeah, we do have a special use. How could I forget? On the agenda, for variances, you must offer evidence to the board setting forth the following: hardship due to unique characteristics of the subject land or the structure and is not due to the general characteristic of the surrounding area. The hardship is not the result of any prior action on your part. The granting of the variance will not alter the general character of the surrounding area. The relief requested is the least relief necessary. You must also show that the hardship that will be suffered if it is not granted will amount to more than a mere inconvenience. The special use permit must present the following: that it is requesting it based specifically authorized by our zoning ordinance. Somewhere in the ordinance it has to be authorized, or we do not have the power to grant it. The requested special use permit meets all the criteria set forth in the zoning ordinance authorized such special uses. The granting of this special use permit will not alter the general characteristic of the surrounding area or impair the purpose or intent of the zoning ordinance. And Jessica, would you mind sort of letting everyone know how they would make themselves known if they want to ask a question?
Sure. So after the applicant has given all of the testimony that they're going to give, anyone in attendance who wishes to speak is going to need to raise their hand. If you're calling in by phone, it will be *9 to raise hand, and then *6 will mute and unmute you. If you're on your computer, if you scroll along the toolbar on the bottom, you'll see a little feature that says raise hand. Everything that is being presented tonight is available to view online at southkingstownri.com under building and zoning and current applications. And it's just important that everyone states their name prior to speaking, just because we do have some people calling in on phones so that they can be identified, so they'll know who's speaking. That's it. Oh, I'm sorry, one more thing. There is a question and answer button along the bottom. We do not use that for any testimony or any questions related to the petitions. That would be if you're having technical difficulties only, would you use the question and answer format. Thanks.
Great, so we can get started. This is the continuation of the William Bodner petition, which is 818 Brookwood Way, Chico, California, 95926 for the dimensional variance. And I read it during last time, so I don't have to read it again, but this is located at 563 Allen Avenue in South Kingstown, Assessor's Map 47-3 and Lot 7. Mr. Bodner, are you out there?
I am.
All right, and you are still sworn in. And I understand you have provided us some of the things we asked for. So why don't you tell us what you gave us?
Sure. The first big change is there was an objection filed by our neighbor to the east. And that's partly completely my fault because I didn't notify them before they got the notice. And I emailed them and we had a very cordial conversation, and she agreed to withdraw the objection and is now in support of it. So again, my fault, but she has withdrawn her letter, but I just wanted to address a few things in the letter because I didn't like myself after I read what was in the letter. So I can imagine what she felt of my wife and I, but she had, in the letter, it stated we were absentee landlords, and that's not the case. An absentee landlord is someone who doesn't live on or near the property and does not, and rarely visits it. I had stated in the last week that my wife and I had lived on the property for several months in 2019, repairing it. We moved out just a few months before that neighbor moved in, and we didn't visit the property last year because of COVID. And we actually are moving back in to the property July 1st. So I just wanted to get that out in the open because I didn't think it was a real favorable light for us. That being said, I'll go right into the evidence that I've submitted that you have before you.
Please.
We've submitted a copy for the record of the approved septic system construction permit from the Rhode Island DEM. We also attached a copy of the DEM approval stamp that is on the OWTS design plan that we have already submitted previously to you. Thank you to the zoning board member who suggested last week that we supply that documentation. I apologize, I don't know exactly who it was, but thank you. Our understanding is that the local zoning regulations legally permit us to build a one-bedroom, 750 square foot accessory unit on our property. There is an existing 864 square foot garage on the property detached from the main house. We believe that it is not feasible to convert the existing garage to a dwelling. Therefore, we hope to build above the garage. Our original request was for a variance of 10 feet above the current 15-foot limit. We are modifying our height variance request to 7.5 feet. And here is the evidence satisfying section 907, the standards for relief that you previously mentioned. Section 1A, the hardship from which we seek relief is due to the unique characteristics of the existing garage structure and not due to the general characteristics of the surrounding area. Specifically, the garage walls consist of structural concrete blocks. These blocks cannot be removed to accommodate doors and/or windows without undermining the structural integrity of the walls. In addition, the outside of the walls on 3 sides of the building are covered with beautiful large field stones that are approximately 4 inches or more thick. This stonework would have to be removed to accommodate the windows and doors. Thus, the practical solution is to build above the existing garage. However, it's not feasible to do it and still meet the 15-foot height limitation. The structure must be at least 22.5 feet high to satisfy local building code requirements. Due to the zoning height restriction, we're requesting the 7.5 variance to allow the finished structure to be 22.5 feet high. Section, can I continue or so?
Of course, yeah, yep.
Section 1B, the structural concrete walls and architectural stonework on the existing garage have been there for many years, and the hardship associated with their presence is not the result of any prior action by us and does not result primarily from a desire on our part to realize greater financial gain. Section 1C, the granting of our requested height variance of 7.5 feet above the allowed 15 feet will not alter the general characteristic of the surrounding area or impair the intent or purpose of the zoning ordinance or the comprehensive plan of the town. The existing garage is 128 feet from the front yard, 180 feet from the rear yard, and 28 feet from the closest side yard to the east. A dwelling above the garage will not affect these setbacks, obviously. The garage is not easily visible from the street or from the adjacent property to the east. There are tall arborvitae trees between the nearest property and the existing garage. There are also trees between the front yard, which is the street side, and the existing garage. It's not easy to see the garage from the street while driving because the driver's focus is primarily on the road. And there is also, from my experience being there for several months, there's also relatively little foot traffic at that location. For section 1D, the relief requested is the least relief necessary to allow a legally permitted accessory unit on the property. Our request for a height variance of 7.5 feet over the allowed 15 feet is the least relief necessary to allow a functional dwelling that satisfies the local building codes for door and ceiling heights. Section 1E, thank God, is not applicable to us. It's for use, and this is a dimensional variance. 1F, the hardship that we will suffer if the dimensional variance is not granted will amount to more than a mere inconvenience. It is more than a mere inconvenience to destroy structural block concrete walls and architectural stonework on the outside of those walls. There is no reasonable alternative to enjoy a legally permitted beneficial use of our property, that is the accessory dwelling, if the dimensional variance is not granted. Thank you for your further consideration. I just want to explain one last thing. Originally, I applied for a height variance of 10 feet. That was my error. At the last minute, when Jamie and I were going over my application, I asked him, I said, well, what if they build it and it's 23 feet high? And he said, well, technically you're in violation. So I went up to 10 feet because I wanted a buffer, but I now realize that would be stretching what you would have to approve. So that's why 7.5 feet is the minimum least relief we could request.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
Great, thank you, Mr. Bodman. That was definitely pertinent to the questions that were asked last week. Mr. Daniels, you were the one, in fact, that I believe asked the initial questions. Do you have any follow-up?
I do not. I have no problem with the application.
Okay. Any other board members, questions for Mr. Botner? Nope.
Bill Rosen.
Yes, sir.
Bill Rosen. I was just curious, we talked about the financial problems associated. Are you going to be living in the accessory apartment?
Myself or a family member will be living there, although after talking with my wife, I may be living there alone, full time. But this fiasco, so it's remains to be seen, but
Okay, so you're not planning to rent that accessories?
not at this point, and I'm not even sure when it's going to be built, to be honest with you. Like I say, this is my first attempt. We've never built anything before.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Any other board members, questions for Mr. Bodman? Jessica, is there anyone out there that would like to respond to this application?
So if anyone in attendance wishes to speak, please use the raise your hand function. If you're on phone, it's *9 to raise your hand, *6 will mute and unmute. On your computer along the toolbar is the raise hand. No one has.
And as mentioned, Mr. Bodnar mentioned that the neighbor that had opposed, they had written a letter so that saying, in fact, they do support it at this point. So, but you went over that very well in your presentation, so I don't think we need to revisit that. So unless there are any other questions or anything you want to add, Mr. Bodnar, we can see if anyone would like to make a motion or.
Okay, I'll do it.
Okay, good. You're up.
I was waiting for you, Richard,
Oh,
but
I know that. I was trying to wait it out.
motion to approve the petition of William Bodnar of Chico, California, for property located at 563 Allen Avenue in South Kingstown. Mr. Bodnar spoke on behalf of himself and spoke in support of what he's attempting to do and clarified for this board the exact nature of his request. He did testify that he will be likely moving to the property, the main property, on July 1. And with that in mind, he wants to build an accessory apartment not to exceed 750 square feet over an existing stone, rather old and scenic to some degree, garage. He is seeking a 7.5 foot variance so that he can achieve a building height of 22.5 feet to comply with proper building codes for an accessory apartment. And that's required under section 401, and his appeal is under section 907, standards of relief. There was no opposition to the request. Previous opposition had been withdrawn after conversation between the applicant and the budding neighbor. The materials that were entered into the record at the previous hearing were identified by the chairman. Additional documentation entered tonight was the OWTS plan, which had been requested previously. The board finds that the hardship from which the applicant seeks is not due, or is due, I should say, to the unique characteristics of the structure and not to the general characteristics of the surrounding area. There is an existing fieldstone garage, rather historic, I would believe. And the applicant wishes to extend the 750 square foot, which is allowed by ordinance, accessory apartment above the garage. The board finds that the hardship is not the result of any prior action of the applicant and does not result primarily from the desire of the applicant to realize greater financial gain. While the property is currently rented, the applicant has testified that he intends to return to the property and that the accessory building will accommodate a family member or members, or hopefully not himself.
Not myself alone.
The board finds that the granting of the requested variance will not alter the general characteristic of the area. In fact, it seems to me when I looked at the structure, it wouldn't be any higher than the main house that's on the property. And certainly there are other garages and properties throughout the immediate area. So it would not impair the intent or purpose of the zoning ordinance or the comprehensive community plan. The board finds that the relief be granted is the least relief necessary because once again, without the height variance, it'd be impossible to construct a accessory apartment which would comply with building codes and be comfortable for the applicant. Board finds that the hardship suffered by the owner of the subject property, if this dimensional variance is not granted, amounts to more than a mere inconvenience. Because once again, there is no suitable appropriate way other than to build above the garage to accommodate an accessory apartment. The foundation essentially is there, and that it would certainly be in the to the benefit of the applicant and not having to start from ground up. So therefore, there are no conditions to this approval, and I would ask that the board grant the approval of Mr. Bardner.
Thank you, Mr. Daniels. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Rosen. Any other discussion? Mr. Daniels,
Aye.
Mr. Rosen,
Aye.
Mr. Jurzak,
Aye.
Mr. Charkowik,
Aye.
Mr. Cagnetta, aye. Motion passes. Good luck, Mr. Baldwin. Okay. So next we have the Coopers, right? So this is the petition of Stephen R. Cooper of 283 High Street, South Kingstown, Rhode Island, 02879, for a dimensional variance under the zoning ordinance as follows. The applicant is seeking to construct a second floor dormer to the existing single-family dwelling. The proposed second floor dormer will be located along the rear of the existing structure, which is within the corner, side, and side yard setback. The dormer will be located 15 feet from the corner side property line. The required corner yard setback is 25 feet, so a relief of 10 feet is requested. The dormer will also be located 6.5 feet from the north side property line. The required side yard setback is 10 feet. A relief of 3.5 feet is requested. The lot size is 0.12 acres. Dimensional variance is required per the zoning ordinance section 207, which is non-conforming lots of building record setback requirements, and section 907 are standards of relief. The owner of the property is Abby C. and Stephen R. Cooper for premises located at 283 High Street, South Kingstown. Assessors map 56-2, lot 108, and is zoned R10. And for documents, we have the application with the cover letter and narrative signed and dated February 12th, 2021. The owner authorization form signed and notarized February 12th, 2021. 200-foot radius map and a butters list. Survey plan prepared by Flynn Surveys Incorporated. James G. Flynn, dated and stamped January 22nd, 2021. Existing and proposed elevations and floor plans, which are the A1, A2, and EX1 plans, prepared by Ocean State Drafting, dated October 7th, 2019. The legal notice, proof of certified mailings, and notarized affidavits of mailings as well. And who is here tonight for this petition?
I am Stephen Cooper, S-T-E-P-H-E-N, Cooper, Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. And do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Excellent. So please go ahead. Tell us what you'd like to do on your house.
Okay, I live at 283 High Street, which is at the corner of Liberty Street and High Street, so just up the road from Town Hall. My wife and I would like to build a combination shed / gable dormer along the length of the back of our house to make full use of our home. Our home is an older house on a small corner lot and a non-conforming structure, which requires this dimensional variance to be able to move forward. The proposed dormer would not increase the existing footprint of the house on the property, but rather fall within it. The design of the proposed cedar shingled back dormer is similar in style to the look and feel of it to the second floor roof dormer on the front of the house, which means that the new dormer will continue to fit in, make the house fit in with the neighborhood. We moved into the house as it is, and we have not made any modifications up to this point, as my wife is probably not happy about. But over the last 19 years that we have been in this house, our family has grown, and the proposed dormer is necessary for us to be able to fully enjoy our home and provide our family with the much needed living space for our 3 children and us. That's 5 people total in this space. Not being able to build a dormer would leave us with a major problem, one that amounts to more than a mere inconvenience. Our current total living space is only 1,014 square feet, with only 338 square feet of that available for our bathroom, hallway, and sleeping quarters upstairs for our entire family. In addition to space limitations, the current structure of the home is such that there is no light or ventilation able to come in from the rear of the second floor of the house because it's closed off. The roof is there. Even our only bathroom has an aggressively sloped ceiling that impedes its full use. You can only stand on one side without bumping your head or ducking. Without having a rear dormer, we lose substantial use of our home and the space that's there. Building the proposed dormer will provide the least relief necessary to alleviate these issues and allow for us to fully enjoy our home's use. And I'll leave it there.
Well, thank you, Mr. Cooper. You certainly gave a legitimate reason. So you're on the corner, and the lot is a pretty unique lot. And your house is not located even within the setbacks, is basically the problem, right?
That's
so you
correct.
can't even build up.
Correct. I was told even if I kicked in a whole bunch, I still need a dimensional variance. I guess when these homes were, at one point this was acceptable, but now, pretty much if I need to do anything, I need some sort of a variance, so.
Okay. All right. So board members, do you have any questions for Mr. Cooper?
Yes, I do. Tom Daniels. Mr. Cooper,
Daniels.
let me understand your testimony. The dormer is not going to exceed the footprint of what exists currently?
That's right. We're not building out in any way. It is going, we're not going towards the property line. We're not going in any direction towards the property line. In fact, on one side, we're actually it's going to be built closer toward the center of the home.
Okay.
It's just that the house as it is already a non-conforming structure. So even just to go where it is,
Well,
essentially we're talking about sort of raising the roof up to be able to walk underneath.
all right, well then, based on that testimony, let me follow up with a question to the building official. Why are we here on this?
Thank you. This is Jamie Gorman, building official. So basically, it would be any additional living space, adding a second story, dormers. This situation, you wouldn't be able to do much of anything without a variance. Maybe a 4 or 5 foot wide dormer, but that'd be an intensification of a non-conforming by dimension structure.
Okay, even though he's not exceeding the footprint of what exists?
Correct. So going up that half story and not complying with the setbacks, he would still require the variance.
This is Amy, and Tom, let me follow up on that. Section 204D. 204 is building or structure non-conforming by dimension, and subsection D, addition and enlargement. A building or structure non-conforming by dimension may be added to or enlarged, including vertically, only if both the building footprint and building envelope of the addition or enlargement conform to the dimensional regs. So an existing structure that's non-conforming by dimension needs further dimensional relief if you are building up even on that same footprint.
Okay.
And, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Mr. Cooper.
I was gonna say, and that's what I meant, like the least relief, we're not building an addition out into our yard or anything like that. There's no other way to increase space without, needing much more relief.
Okay, any other board members, questions for Mr. Cooper?
Yeah, Bill Rosen here. I have a question. Mr. Cooper, you mentioned that presently you have 1,014 square feet of house,
Yes,
and you're going to be increasing the square footage of the house, but you're going to stay within the present footprint. What's it going up to?
the total house number, I don't know, but in terms of the living space, it's about another 220 square feet we're adding.
So you're adding 220.
Well, it's the same floors, but we'll now be able to stand up.
No, I understand that. So you're going to have 1,234 square feet essentially, correct?
That sounds right.
Yeah, okay. That's the only question I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any other board members, questions? Okay, is there anyone out in the audience that wants to speak on behalf of this petition, either for or against?
No one has raised their hand.
Do you want to add anything else, Mr. Cooper?
No, not really. I was, other than the fact that it was a little bit confusing, in terms of everyone has answered the question. Everyone at the town hall working with them has been very helpful. I mean, any frustration I had was not dealing with anyone in the town. It was just with the, the way that the rules were set up in terms of having to go through all the hoops, but everyone's been very
Understood.
helpful.
Well, good. Okay, so if no one has any other questions, does someone want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion this time unless Mr. Daniels wants to. I mean, I would. No, I'll go ahead.
You go right ahead, Mr.
No, I'll
Jones.
go ahead. Okay, Rick Jurzak here, okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve the petition of Stephen R. Cooper, okay, with regard to premises located at 283 High Street in South Kingstown, Rhode Island, okay. Mr. Cooper has come to us today and testified and explained to us exactly what he wants to do. What he's basically looking to do is put a dormer on his existing dwelling. He's explained that he has a fairly large family, okay, and they only have 1,014 feet of living space. And this adding the dormer would give them just a nicer, more healthier and safer place to live, okay? He also explained that the dormer will not change the footprint of the existing property, okay, which is presently a non-conforming use because it doesn't meet the setback requirements of current zoning, okay? This dormer is to the rear of the existing structure. It's an R10 zone piece of property consisting of 0.12 acres. Mr. Cooper's asked for the variance to be granted. No one spoke in opposition, okay? For that reason, I would like to ask that it be approved. I'm just going to go over very quickly. We're under section 907A here, all right? And let's just go through and make sure that we have all the requirements of 907A. all right, clearly he's shown that there is a hardship, all right, due to the location of the house on a fairly small lot and a fairly differently configured lot, and also due to its location on another road, okay? So therefore, the hardship is due to the unique characteristics of the subject structure itself as it sits on the land, all right? All right, the hardship is not the result of any prior action by the applicant, okay? He's lived there for several years. They've done nothing. They were honestly went in, they're raising their family there. They've done nothing there in derogation of our statutes, okay? The granting of the requested variance will not alter the general character of the surrounding area or impair the intended purpose of the zoning ordinance, because it's actually making the neighborhood more pleasant, okay? It's a very nice structure as it's going to be changed. That the relief will be granted is the least relief necessary. He's only asking for a small amount of relief. He's not going to go by the existing building footprint whatsoever. All right. Oh, okay. And also, if we did not grant this variance, this would clearly amount to more than a mere inconvenience, because they would not be able to add to the premises anywhere due to the very nature of the structure and where it sits on the lot. All right. I would like to just make reference to the survey, okay, by Flynn Surveys Inc., okay, which is dated January 22, 21. I would like last add that clearly Mr. Cooper has shown us, okay, that they have a hardship here, and I would like that that this be granted. Okay, that's it, Mr. Chairman.
Great, thank you, Mr. Jurczak. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Rosen. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Jurczak,
Aye.
Mr. Rosen,
Aye.
Mr. Daniels,
Aye.
Mr. Charkowik,
Aye.
Mr. Cagnetta, aye. Motion passes. Good luck, Mr. Cooper.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.
You too. Okay. Lastly, we have the petition of Winding Road Compassion Center at 72 Pine Street, in the first floor, Providence, Rhode Island, 02903, for a special use permit under the zoning ordinance as follows. The applicant is seeking a special use permit to establish a marijuana retail facility, Compassion Center. The state is in the process of expanding state licensed retail compassion centers. In anticipation of that expansion, applicants must receive local approval for the establishment of the facility as part of their application to the State Department of Business Regulation. The lot size is 2.65 acres. And in this case, a special use permit is required per our zoning ordinance, section 301, which is the schedule of use regulations table, section 504.15, which is marijuana related uses, and section 907 are standards of relief. The owner is Scott V. Hallberg for premises located at 682 Kingstown Road, South Kingstown, Rhode Island. Assessors map 57-1, lot 96-1, and is zoned CH, commercial highway. The use code is 100- marijuana retail facility. Excuse me, we have quite a few documents that came with the application. We have the application with the cover letter signed and dated November 30th, 2020. The owner authorization form signed and notarized October 30th, 2020. The 200-foot radius map and a butters list. Existing conditions, which is C1.0, an aerial plan, C2.0, prepared by JCE, Joe Casali, PE, stamped, dated November 2020. Revised site plans C20, prepared by JCE, Joe Casali, PE, stamped and dated November 20th, 2020, and revised January 8th, 2021. The landscape plan L1.1 prepared by Diane Sewell, landscape architect, dated October 2020. Floor plan and elevations A1.0, A2.0, prepared by Dennis Caldwell Architects, dated September 24th, 2020. Rhode Island Department of Business Regulation application for medical marijuana compassion center license, which is 440 pages. The planning board advisory to the zoning, the advisory development plan review decision granted on January 26th, 2021, and recorded on February 1st, 2021, which is 3 pages. Joseph A. Casali, PE, MBA, resume, 1 page. Project narrative prepared by Joseph Casali, PE, stamped and dated November 24th, 2020, which is the 23 pages. Edward Pimentel, AICP, Pimentel Consulting, his resume, 3 pages, and analysis report, the 17 pages. Paul Bannon, transportation traffic engineer, resume, 4 pages. Beta traffic study dated October 6th, 2020, which is 62 pages. Security protocols, 3 pages. Zoning Board of Review presentation prepared by Joseph Casali, PE, and Dennis Caldwell Architects, 14 slides. Legal notice, proof of certified mailings, and notarized affidavit of mailing. Continuation request from attorney Christine J. Augustine, dated March 12, 2021, requesting a continuation until this very evening. So tonight, who do we have speaking on behalf of this petition?
I will initially, Mr. Chairman. My name is Chris. Hi,
I'm sorry, I had to find you on here. So
that's okay. Thank you. May I begin?
Yes, please.
Would
Let
you
us
like,
know, how would you like to start?
do I need to spell my name?
Yeah, why don't you do that for?
It's Christine, Christine, Ngustian, Engustian. I have a law office at One Grove Avenue, East Providence, Rhode Island. Tonight, I represent the Winding Road Compassion Center, Inc., which is the applicant presently before this board for a special use permit. The subject property is located at 682 Kingstown Road. Property is situated, as the chairman said, within a commercial highway or CH zoning district. The applicant proposes to establish a medical marijuana compassion center of approximately 5,000 square feet at the southern end of the building on the premises. Under the town zoning ordinance, this proposed use falls within the marijuana related uses that are permitted, as the chairman said, in a CH zoning district by a special use permit. Through the testimony that will be provided this evening and through the written reports, the security protocols, plans, and material submitted to this board in support of the zoning application, the applicant will demonstrate that it has met the criteria under section 504.15 and section 907 of the zoning ordinance for the issuance of a special use permit for a compassion center. This applicant and its team of professionals has worked closely and diligently with the town staff to shape the applicant's proposal in the best form possible. On January 26, 2021, the planning board unanimously voted to provide an advisory recommendation to this zoning board for the subject application. Tonight, we will have the project engineer, Joseph Casali, a registered professional engineer with Joe Casali Engineering, Inc., present a PowerPoint explaining all aspects of the applicant's proposal. At the conclusion of the PowerPoint, I'd like permission from the board just to speak for a minute about 2 members of the project team, and then we'll have all members of the project team available to you for questioning. If it's the board's preference, I can introduce the group now. If not, each person can identify himself or herself and the position he or she holds relative to the project before speaking to you.
Yeah, why don't we do it for each person so we
Okay.
can stay fresh.
Fine. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So with your permission, I'd like to turn this over to Joseph Casali for the PowerPoint.
Thank you, Christine. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, first of all, good evening. My name is Joe Casali. I'm a registered professional engineer with offices at 300 Post Road in Warwick. As Attorney Angustian said, I'd like to quickly go through a PowerPoint, which I hope encapsulates our entire proposal and presentation. But I'm
Okay,
sure
Mr.
there'll be.
Casali, just before you get started, please state your name and spell it for us.
Sure, it's Joseph Casali, C-A-S-A-L-I.
Okay, and do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Excellent. So please go ahead, tell us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So would like to quickly, like we said, go through that PowerPoint, but then there's a variety of professionals with me to drill down on some of the questions you may have. You know, legally with Christine, we also have Chris Gonzalez, our architect, is with us. Steve Ford will handle security. We have ownership here. We have our traffic consultant, Paul Bannon, and we even have operations with Rachel Cross. And as Attorney Angustian said, also Ed Pimentel is here for land use, and our landscape architect, Diane Soul, is here. So, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'm just going to share my screen.
Please.
I am hoping right now you all can see that, and we're going to take this from the top. So just in terms of where we are in the community, Kingstown Road, Old Tower Hill Road, local by the name of Holly Street, Dale Collier, and that's ultimately the subject site. Specifically Assessors Plat 57-1, lot 96. It's a large piece, about 2 3/4 of an acre. And as has been stated, it's entirely in your CH, or your commercial highway zone. When we look closely at the subject property, you know, it's made up of really 3 units, 3 condominiums. The largest one is Ocean State Job Lot. That middle one is a variety from a small appliance shop, a Subway, and there's a Thai restaurant. And then the last unit is the one specifically that we'll be talking most about. You all may know of it as a former Yankee Travel, but that's the building that we are going to house our operations. And so specifically, it's a small building in that it's about 1/3 of an acre. And when we look at it programmatically, we have the basement of the building, and then we have the main floor plan. And what I'd like to do is walk you through how we anticipate our customers are going to be serviced, deliveries, and so forth and so on. So when you look at the initial, that's our secure entry and exit. That is the only means of egress that a patient will have. And it's at that point where they need to show their picture ID and also their medical marijuana card. And that's where they'll interface initially with our secure check-in. From that time, they really can only matriculate in the retail area. And so the numbers here are our POSI stations, or our, you know, a point of transaction station. And then, you know, a patient would be able to only, you know, again, matriculate in that area. Now, we anticipate our patients from other venues that we run. There's about 20 to 25 patients per hour, but on a peak hour, there could be upwards of 40 people. And we do have various technologies that we utilize so that it's not, you know, 40 people walking into the store. We have queuing technologies for people in the parking lot. We have websites for people to order on. But then there is the general, you know, allowed to just walk through with the retail. So when we talk about, you know, placing your orders, we have certain of these stations specifically for, say, the first 3 would be for people in the parking lot. And that Dutchy software, the best I can describe it, and my apologies to Disney, is it's like a fast pass. So they will give you a specific time that you can come in and shop through the store. There is other ways of doing it. Like I said, with the online ordering, you can place your order on a website like you would order anything in today's COVID days, and then be able to pick it up. And then there's also, the time slots that are just controlled from the people and the online people coming in. So we do have a restroom for the patients that would be allowed. But in terms of our delivery, you'll see that we've separated it as far as we can. All deliveries will come in, Mr. Chairman, from the rear of the building. It is a secure hallway, and that's when all of the fulfillment will be done in the basement or in the back of house area, completely away and secured from the patients. We have multiple vaults in the facility. One is for product, one is for cash. We also have areas for our administrative personnel, such as offices on the first and on the bottom floor, as well as security offices. We do have break rooms for our staff on both level, employee restrooms that are completely separate from the public. And then in terms of what we plan on doing from an exterior, you see the building as it exists today, utilizing that main entrance. One of the things we'd like to do is we have committed to infilling one of the windows and some of the fenestration in the back of the building for security and privacy. But to not make this look like a back of house for people that see this on Holly Street, we're going to incorporate some type of fake or faux windows that will match the current architecture and the facade. In terms of site improvements and landscaping, we have been through multiple iterations from the town. I think we have provided everything that's asked of us, and this is a much better plan that we've come out with together than when we started. Some of the highlights, Mr. Chairman, we have committed to that we would have an extension of the turning lane so that we would not have a backup or queuing on the roadway. We've also eliminated one of the main ingress and egresses to the parcel. It was at the request of the town and considered by the owner and the applicant that it would be a better situation if our points of entry and exit were spread as far apart as they could be. So utilizing that existing main ingress and egress. We've actually restructured this one on the westernmost side just because of we wanted to put in crosswalks and have more defined pavement marking so that pedestrians and vehicular interface was cleaned up a little bit. In terms of parking, we meet the code. 146 spaces per your code for the current and proposed layout would be required. We actually have 162 now, Mr. Chairman, and by restriping this and closing some of those entrances, we'll actually be able to get up to about 165 spaces. So, about 19 more than the code requires. But most importantly, we're going to bring this site into conformance with the ADA requirements, having the right amount of ADA spaces, as well as some of the crosswalks that are carefully crafted and put in there for some of the handicapped patients and also patrons. Again, the 165 spaces, some of the ADA compliance. We're also proposing a sidewalk there. So if there's any pedestrian access from the north, we'd be able to take them right into the parcel and not, take them off of the state highway. We also are putting in an additional crosswalk here while we anticipate our employees and a lot of the patrons, maybe for some of the right-hand customers and buildings would be able to come through in that area. We've also proposed a new sidewalk up Dale Collier, a new crosswalk, and this is all new sidewalks that are being proposed for the benefit of not only the community, but also for any increase in pedestrian and vehicular traffic. We've modified at the request of the community some of these parallel parking spaces, so they're a little easier and in conformance. We've put in a loading space, and this is where our secure entry is for delivery. This is where our entry is for the customers. And we've also designated, as I stated earlier, I believe, is some employee parking areas. In terms of landscaping, Mr. Chairman, you'll see a full landscape design. We are proposing in terms of our trash receptacle, it's going to be enclosed within a 6-foot stockade fence. Respectfully, we don't want anyone to, to see that, our refuse, and it's also going to be secured, and that's part of the requirements from DBR business regulation for our specific use as a dispensary. You can see all of the landscaping that is proposed, even in the the northernmost areas. And we're able, at the request of the city, when you see these blue areas that just came up, those are going to be drainage areas. So we, while respectfully, maybe we're not required to do anything because the entire site is paved today and will be paved tomorrow. There was an opportunity for us to, because of the way the water sheet flows into all of these perimeter appurtenances, we'll be able to capture at least the first flush, if not a little bit more, and we'll be able to infiltrate some of that water. So in essence, Mr. Chairman, the storm water onto the state highway will be less, the volumes will be less, and it'll be much cleaner. So that was a nice, opportunity that arose that we were able to implement. I'm almost done, I promise. In terms of permitting, we have been before your TRC once in October and then again in November. Ultimately, we were before your planning board, which gave us that positive recommendation. That's before you now. Ultimately, we finished up in January with your planning board, and we're here before you tonight. Ultimately, as you suggested, was the special use permit, with the understanding that this isn't the end of the road for us. Should we be selected by DBR to go forward, we still have to go back with the water authority, with the sewer department, ultimately a building and ultimately a building permit. I know that's a lot in one breath. I could use a drink myself, but I would be happy to start and answering questions. And if I may continue to keep sharing my screen, I'll just flip back and forth through the PowerPoint, and the appropriate professional can answer any concerns you may have.
Yep, and we'll just start off with questions for you, if that's okay.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
may I just ask a moment of your time before the questioning? We have two members of the project team, Paul J. Bannon and Edward Pimentel, as you mentioned when you were listing the documentation that was provided to the board. And I would like to ask, they are here this evening, and I would like to ask the board to qualify or recognize Paul J. Bannon, who submitted a traffic study as an expert in traffic engineering, and qualify or recognize Edward Pimentel, who submitted a planning report as an expert in the field of land use, zoning, and planning. Both men have been so qualified or recognized as such experts before this board at prior hearings. So before they were to respond or speak to any questions, I just wish to ask for that qualification or recognition.
Absolutely. You had submitted both Mr. Pimentel's and Mr. Bannon's resume, and they have presented in front of this committee before. So it's absolutely, they can be recognized as experts in their field.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Casali, let me just clarify. So these improvements are only going to happen to the property if the Compassion Center moves in. Even though the
Yes, that-
Compassion Center isn't the owner, the only way these improvements will happen in terms of drainage and parking and egress and all that would be if the Compassion Center moves in.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, just make sure of that. Board members, any other questions of Mr. Casali's first part of their presentation? No? Okay. Mr. Casali or Mr. Gustin, whoever wants to present the next.
Well, that's it, Mr. Chairman. That really ends our presentation. We certainly can have the traffic engineer present if there's certain things that maybe you want to drill down on in terms of traffic, in terms of architecture, operationally or security wise, commitments from the owner. We really wanted to be a little fluid with the presentation and see what it is, where we could go to sort of alleviate any concerns or specific questions.
One thing you
Mr.
did
Chair-
put up there, oh, sorry, yeah, let me just ask, the one thing you did put up there were some hours of operation.
Yeah.
I saw at one point. And what were the hours?
So we're going to comport to the town's hours of operation. Christine, correct me if I'm wrong, it's 7 a.m. to 10 p.m.
It's 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. in accordance
you.
with the ordinance.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Daniels. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Tom Daniels, I do have a couple of questions. In lieu of the fact that the traffic report, I guess, is not going to be expounded on, having read the traffic report, I find a disconnect between the total number of patient visits in the course of a day and the trips that the traffic engineer estimated.
And
If
Mr.
we look at the
Daniels,
25 patients per hour times 12 hours, it's 300 patients. The traffic report indicates total in and out 100 trips a day. Seems to me to be a big disconnect.
Mr. Daniels, I can have Paul Bannon present the traffic. I didn't mean to short circuit this presentation, or we could go right into the questions and answers if there are specific ones.
Well, that's
Why don't
my
we talk about the,
I can answer that question.
Yeah, Paul, what,
go ahead.
Swear to tell the truth.
Yes, Mr. Bannon, please state your name.
My name is Paul Bannon, B-A-N-N-O-N. I'm an associate
swear to
with
tell
Bannon
the whole
Group in
truth?
Lincoln, Rhode Island.
And you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, great. So go ahead, Mr.
Mr.
Bannon.
Daniels, just to answer your question, there is no disconnect. The number you read in the report is the peak hour trips. That's total entering and exiting. So if you look at that number I gave you, the 100, we were estimating in a peak hour, as Joe had indicated, upwards to 40 plus. We're estimating 45 customers in that 1 hour and 55 leaving. So that gets you the 100. That's a 1 hour over the course of the day. The way these facilities operate is, yes, they're open 12 hours a day. Your mornings are usually slow. You may have a peak in the midday around the lunch time, but much of the business occurs between the latter hours of the business day, between 4 and 8 p.m. So what we did is we took a percentage of those, 300 plus patients per day, and focused them, okay, what's the worst case condition over the course of the day? And that would be the 40 to 50 peak hour customers. The rest of the hours are lower, 10, 20 customers per hour.
Okay, if I may, Mr. Bannon, is it fair to say then, if you anticipate 300 patients in the course of a day, is it fair to assume that 100% of those will be people in vehicles, which would generate 300 ingresses and egresses in the course of a day to that site? Is that correct? Would you agree with that?
That would be a conservative assumption because experience suggests that the patients typically come with more than one per vehicle. They'll come in 2 or 3. So to be conservative and to say that no one's going to walk that lives in the community there, or no one takes public transit, yes, you could say there would be, if there's 300 customers, 300 cars, if you want to be conservative. But that would not be reality.
And
Okay.
that's also over a 12-hour period.
Yes.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you.
Which is, if I may, Mr. Chairman, follow-ups, Paul, just, that's a typical traffic study, is we normally measure the levels of service in an AM peak hour and a PM peak hour, and it's really those two snapshots, which is what we're most concerned with. And this particular use with the 8 AM opening sort of misses the AM peak hour.
Yes, and we try to look at the worst, what the worst case condition would be, and if traffic operates fine during that worst period, the rest of the day would not be an issue.
Well, just a follow-up, what do you anticipate your peak hours? What?
As I indicated, between 4 and closing.
Okay,
So the normal AM peak hour for a traffic study is a 7 to 9, and a PM is sometimes a 4 to 6, 4 to 7. So in here, we're assuming 4 to 8. At any one of those hours, we could get those 45 trips in, 55 trips out. And how is that going to affect the overall traffic pattern, in that immediate area?
thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, I have Bill Rosen, I have a question or two.
Yes, sir, Mr. Rosen, please.
On the figure that you have on your PowerPoint here, which is on the screen now.
Yep.
You show that a patient coming in through this secure entry,
Yes.
and from the footprints, it looks like they're going directly into the retail, but what's the secure ID check? Is that going to be an ID check for each patient that comes in, and they're going to go through those doors?
Yeah, and I'm gonna let Rachel Cross, our operations expert, explain this. But in short, this door these doors are locked before you can get buzzed in, and then this is also locked until the secure check-in. This is where the security officers will be. You will have to give your license, your medical marijuana card, and only at that time will they let you into the retail. Rachel, can you expound on that? If I didn't explain that correctly?
You did. And my name is Rachel Cross, RachelCross.
And you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Rachel,
Excellent.
just a
Go ahead,
quick
Rachel.
background for the board, just your experience. When I say operations, it's such a broad brush I'm painting you with, but I know your experience is much more.
Yes. So I've been involved in retail medical marijuana dispensaries since 2014. General operations, so in terms of patient and customer intake, verification of medical certifications, explaining of the use of safe medical marijuana use, as well as just general operations, influx, and exiting of the facilities. So in regards to this entry, the secure entry, pretty much hit the nail on the head with how it operates. Patients will enter through the secure entrance, which is when they will show their identification card. So that is a driver's license or a passport, as well as their medical marijuana card issued by the state of Rhode Island. That is verified by the security officers that are in that desk there where you see the secure ID check. Following that verification, they will be able to enter the retail sales floor. From there, they will have the option for the order ahead kiosk, which we explained in the initial presentation, as well as having the ability to speak with a licensed agent regarding the use of the products and processing their actual transaction of the products.
And then, Mr. Chairman, just to expound, they would then, this is again a secure exit that they would have to be let out. And then ultimately, so there is only one point of ingress and egress for patients, but for fire and we do have multiple, the secure and the patients. I hope that was clearer now.
And these are all part of the requirements from the Department of Regulation as well, right?
Absolutely.
In terms of
Yes.
entry and verification.
Correct.
Yes, that's
Yes.
correct.
And Mr. Chairman, Rachel Cross's position with the applicant is Vice President of Retail Operations. It's a
Okay.
formal title.
Yeah, thanks. Diane.
Okay, great.
I'm interested.
So she didn't just get a promotion right on the
No.
right at the board here.
That's right. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, and just for clarification, our landscape architect, Diane Soul, Diane waved to us. You're mislabeled as our second attorney, Christine Angustian, but so we have both our attorney and our landscape architect.
Okay, I
Mr.
need,
Chairman,
excuse me, I need clarification on, with respect to my
Go ahead,
question.
Mr. Rosen. Yep.
Is this one patient at a time going through the secure ID and then into the retail store?
When we're in regards to the situation now with all of the COVID and the social distancing, we would be limiting to one patient within that egress or in that entryway area. Typically, when we aren't having to, implement social distancing and COVID regulation, there would be up to 2 patients in that space getting their IDs verified to gain entry onto the sales floor. But with respect with everything with COVID right now, we would be implementing social distancing, which would mean 1 person per check-in.
Okay, and one further question for Mr. Bannon. You indicated that sometimes patients come more than one in a car. Is that correct?
Yes,
And do they, okay, so if there were 2 of them, they could enter at the same time, right?
as Rachel indicated, post-COVID, yes, they would come in the vestibule at the same time.
Correct, yes.
And-
They would
and
both
as with-
still have their IDs verified separately, so they would both still required to be
Yeah, that was my
verified
next
medical
question.
patients.
That was my next question. Are they ID'd separately?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, yep, absolutely.
Thank
And Paul, you're welcome. Just for clarification, when you're figuring uses for traffic and volumes, all uses have assumed that at times there's multiple parties in one car. Parties can take public transportation. There are pedestrians, and that's factored into your calculations.
Correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
We
question for Ms. Cross.
Yes, Mr. Daniels.
Thank you. Ms. Cross, you obviously have a background in retail, and you may be acutely aware that there is a possibility of the legislature in Rhode Island granting retail sales of marijuana. And part of that proposed legislation or anticipated legislation would permit existing compassion centers, as I understand it, to be first in line to offer recreational marijuana. So my question would be, how would that impact the design of what you have here in accommodating what would probably double or triple, or who knows, add to the existing layout, the existing design, the existing traffic pattern.
Sure. To answer your question, as a company, we have discussed, and also with the town, if that does pass, this is something we would be revisiting from the very beginning. The intention of this location is to be a medical dispensary only. So we understand the location isn't the largest. So as of right now, this location and this spot specifically would be for medical patients only.
And
Which would-
Christine,
would
as a
be for-
follow-up, correct me if I'm wrong, the application we're here before tonight is a special use permit for medical. If we were to apply for recreational, it would be a separate application and a separate special use permit.
As I understand it, you could be automatically granted as if you had a
No,
compassion center.
No, Mr. Daniels, I don't believe that's the case, but also the planning board's advisory recommendation was that if the applicant wished to establish a recreational use, they would have to come back before the zoning board. And you may recall that the prior applications that have come before this board for a compassion center or medical marijuana use have been approved with that condition. So I think there's a general understanding across the board that any recreational use would require separate permission and authorization from this town.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Hi, this is Ed Pimentel. May I offer something in that regard as well?
Yes,
The-
Mr.
the
Ben,
land
just
use-
first, please, just hang on, just
Sure.
spell your name. Just spell your name for the, yep. Did I cut him off?
Nicholas P. as in Paul, I am a Pacific interpretation. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, we can now.
Okay.
So please go
Yeah,
ahead again.
Thank you. So the land use classification specifically references medicinal marijuana, and it doesn't specifically specify retail. So that would be an extra protection because it's beyond the classification. If we went in a different direction, so that would be an altogether different operation. So that's another protection afforded the community.
And just for clarity though, Mr. Chairman, we do stipulate that this is only for medical, as our recommendation from planning. They asked the same question. It's a fair question. We're all reading the newspapers and getting up to speed a little bit together. And we understand fully if we were to come back for anything but medical, it would require a new application, new special use permit, and we'd be back under the auspice of the town and the review.
Okay. So for all intents and purposes, this is always going to remain medical marijuana, and have to stay within the confines of its presentation tonight in terms of use and so forth, capacity and everything else.
Correct.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Daniels?
Not at the moment.
Okay. Any other board members, questions for what's been presented or asked so far?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Rick Jurzak here.
Yes,
I
sir,
have-
Mr. Joseph.
I have a couple of questions. I guess these maybe they can be directed to the proper person by Ms. Extunian. I hope I get it right. I'm sorry if I.
Okay,
butchered.
that's close. That's quite all
Close.
right.
No, hey, my name is Jurzak, so believe me, I know the feeling. Okay, do you have any problem with the 14 conditions as set forth in the planning board's advisory opinion?
No, the applicant, when questioned at that hearing, was agreeable to meeting all conditions that were set forth.
Okay,
We have 13. Did you say 14, Mr. Juzak?
yeah, 13, I'm sorry. Yeah,
Okay, no, that's okay. I just want to make sure that I'm
No,
looking at the right
I'm old.
document.
I'm
That's
old, I
okay.
can't
No, no,
see.
that's okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay, couple other questions.
Sure.
The parking and what you're looking to do looks terrific, I guess, but my question for you is, this is a condo. You've got, I guess, what, 3 or 4 units there. Are there any agreements in place between condo owners as to how many parking spaces they each get, where they're located? Can anyone just park anywhere? What's the story on that?
It's just general parking lot layout, so there's no specific spaces designed per unit. It's just a general parking available for all consumers or patrons.
So what's going to happen if Ocean State takes all of the spaces in front of your place or vice versa? I mean, is it? Do the condo documents address that? I mean, I can see, that it's when you go there to Ocean State on certain days, it's unbelievable. You can hardly move anywhere in there. And where are you? I mean, your people are going to come through the front door, I would imagine, right? Facing 108.
Facing 108, yes,
Yeah,
Route 108,
okay.
yes.
Well, I mean,
There's only one entrance for the patrons.
well, I would just make note that parking there is difficult at times, especially if they have sales and if they have, the seniors day and all that stuff. I mean, I've gone to that place and it's unbelievable. Parking can be tough. Next question. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about security. Are the guards armed?
I'm going to have Stephen Ford, who's the
Yeah.
security consultant, address the board. Stephen?
And Steve, could you also give us a little bit of background so the board understands
Yeah,
your
please.
deep experience in this issue?
Sure. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, and just state your name and spell it, please.
Yes, sir. It's Stephen with a V, Ford, F-O-R-D-E.
And you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Great. Go ahead.
Good evening, members of the board. My name's Stephen Ford. I'm the security consultant for Winding Road. I'm a retired detective from the Warwick Police Department with 25 years of service. 16 of those I spent in detectives. Upon retirement, I worked for the Slater Compassion Center in Providence, which is the largest medical marijuana dispensary in the state to date. I started there just prior to them opening and remained the security supervisor for 5 years. I assisted in developing and implementing their security system, which still remains there today. While I was a detective in Warwick, I was assigned to the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration, Rhode Island Task Force, where I was assigned to them on a full-time basis and worked there for 5 years. So I am familiar with both state of Rhode Island laws and federal laws regarding drug enforcement. And I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Go ahead, Mr. Jerzak.
Yeah, are the guards going to be armed?
No, sir.
Okay.
No
How
one in the
much-
building will be armed.
Yeah, how much product will there be on site at any one time and how much cash will be there?
That's not something we talk about in a public forum right now. But again, it would depend on the amount of business demand, that type of thing. We will be having cash pickups on a regular basis, depending upon need. And also our deliveries for cannabis to the center will also be coordinated based upon customer need.
Okay, so-
Rick, this is Amy Goins. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but Rhode Island law or the DVR regulations in some way limits the amount of product that they can have at the facility at any one time. And again, I don't know what that is, but I know that there is some sort of limitation.
It's from what I understand, it's based upon our patient need. So it would be driven by, the amount of patients that we would have. And, we need to fulfill, obviously, the amounts that would be required for our patrons.
And all of this inventory is recorded in the state required system, which the state does have access to at all times, and a part of our operating procedures will be accurate at all times. All auditing and investigations will be implemented when necessary, but essentially the inventory is tracked during all points, receiving, when it's currently in the location, and when it is dispensed.
Steve, could you or Christine maybe just explain the stipulation the owners agreed to, which would be to work with the local police department and I think post an officer for a month or whatever time is needed?
Yes, that's
Yes,
condition, that's the condition number 13 in the planning board's recommendation. Upon request by the police chief or Department of Public Services, the applicant shall conduct a post-construction traffic analysis and review to determine if additional traffic safety measures are required. Is that the one that you were speaking of, Joe?
And I thought there was also one about, I thought it was a stipulation of working with the local police department.
There's number 10.
that-
Number 10 is about the uniformed officer for purposes of traffic control for the first month of
you.
operations.
Yes, that's the one.
And they will continue to provide a uniformed officer for traffic control based upon the request of the South Kingstown Police Chief, who shall consult with the town engineer and director of public services on the need for such officer beyond the 1-month period.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah, I'm done, Mr. Chairman. Rick Cherzak.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other board members, questions of the applicant or any of the witnesses so far? None? Okay. Mr. Casali, is there anything else that you want to present before we open it up and see if there's anyone out there that has any questions?
No, Mr. Chairman. No, there's not.
Jessica, could you remind folks as to what it takes for them to make themselves known?
Sure. So anyone who is in the audience and who wishes to speak, you're going to use the raise hand function. On the bottom of your computer, you'll see a little yellow hand. If you click that, it will raise your hand. If you're calling in by phone, it is *9 to raise hand. *6 will mute and unmute.
Okay. Is there anyone out there that wants to speak in behalf of this petition, either for or against?
Mr. Chairman, may I ask, would you let Dan DeCesare in? He's my project manager. I see him in the attendees.
Sure.
Thank you.
Did you want to have Dan talk or?
No, I just wanted him to be a part of the conversation.
Okay, great. Is there anyone that raised
No
their
one has
hand?
raised their hand.
Okay. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
No, sir.
No, Mr. Chair.
Board members, any concerns? We've heard the other Compassion Center down the street. This seems equally well prepared and thought through. It seems like all the regulations are doing their part in terms of making sure that security and is of the utmost concern. So, board members, any thoughts you'd want to share or
Mr. Chairman,
motions?
is there any opposition out there?
No, no one spoke up.
Okay.
So
I'll go.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Daniels.
I have basically the same concerns that Mr. Jerzak has with regard to parking. And I expressed some concerns earlier about the amount of traffic. But with that said, I think the planning board has probably vetted that to a stronger degree than we might have it this evening. And so be it. I'll listen to the other members at this point.
Any other members' thoughts on related to that? I mean, I would agree that there are times that the job lot gets busy. That whole area gets busy from CVS down to Washington Trust. But there always seems to be spots deeper. The immediate spots are always taken up, but there always seems to be spots around the corner. Any other board members' thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'll just say that, the parking construction, or the construction that they're going to do to the parking lot is certainly going to be an improvement. And getting rid of that one exit in front would do wonders for problems associated with accidents, et cetera, which I've seen some accidents occur there. There's also parking over on the side of Ocean's job lot. I don't know if that's included in the 162 spaces that are referred to here, but
Yes.
Yes, it is.
it is. So there's 162 on the entire acreage associated with that structure, right?
And we hope to have 165 when we're done restriping it. Even with the crosswalks and the ADA, because we closed the entrance and changed the configuration around, we were able to actually get more spaces without any more impervious area.
And there's going to be a couple of handicap parking spaces too.
Well, now there'll be 6 of them, which is the required amount for over 150 spaces. So now we'll be in compliance with landscape, with the ADA Act. Yes, correct.
How much street parking will there be?
We're not counting on any of the street parking for our use, but there will be on Dale Collier, there will be the street parking that exists today. We'll have those 3 spaces on the western side of the property on the Dale Collier between CVS and the Compassion Center.
I have no problems with this application.
Thank you.
It seems to me that it's along with the other 2 applications that have come in, that this is on a lottery system, and there's no guarantee that this applicant is going to be any more successful than anybody else. So
that's
correct.
Mr. Casali, I have one question. So
Sure.
When you talk about the parking, you talk about the parking necessary for the entire, all the units.
Yes, so when we break it down, but all the existing units today, we need 145 spaces. We already have more than that at 162. But when we restripe it to 165, in essence, we'll have roughly 19 or 20 more than your code requires. So yes, for all the uses.
Right, and I just wanted to clarify that because that's what I was thinking for a minute, that, oh, the Compassion Center itself needs 165.
No.
No, it's the entire
Yeah.
complex. Okay, got it. Mr. Charkowicz, how are you feeling about this? Any issues, concerns?
No, I don't have any concerns. I think, I mean, I know that lot can get busy at times, but it seems like there's sufficient parking, especially when you consider the side of the building there. It seems like they've certainly done their homework and put together a very comprehensive application.
Thank you.
So yeah, I have no problems with this.
Thank you.
So if there isn't anyone else, is there someone who'd want to make a final statement or a motion?
Now, I'll make a motion, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely, Mr. Rosen, go for it. If you feel you need any help, just don't be afraid to ask.
I'll make a motion to approve the petition of the, what's it called? The Winding Road Compassion Center to be located in Wakefield. The following individuals spoke on behalf of the Winding Road Compassion Center. Christine Ujustian, is that how you pronounce it?
Ngustian.
Ngustian, sorry.
No, that's quite all right. Thank you.
It's spelled EU, correct, at the beginning?
No, E-N,
E-N.
E-N-G.
Yeah, okay. Christine Ngustian, who's the lawyer representing Winding Road. Mr. Joseph Caselli, who's a professional engineer and made the bulk of the presentation associated with the Compassion Center. Mr. Paul Bannon, who's a parking expert. Rachel Cross, who is going to be the vice president of the organization, Edward Pimentel, who's the planning expert, and Mr. Steve Ford, who is the security expert associated with this operation. There was no outside opposition or support associated with this petition. The list of the materials that was presented was identified by the chairman prior to the petition, stating the petition itself. It seems like an appropriate response, since it's required that the zoning board deal with this matter before it goes before the state, which is having a lottery associated with opening up some new compassion centers. I believe it's 6 in number total. However, in Zone 5, which includes South Kingstown, there's going to be a number of applications made. As a matter of fact, we've already heard 2 on this board. This is the 3rd one that we've heard this year. In the 2 previous ones, approval was given to go forward with the petition as such. And so this falls into that classification as being the 3rd. And it's my understanding there may be a 4th one coming forward. In terms of the actual petition itself, the board finds that the special use is specifically authorized by the ordinance. As a matter of fact, the ordinance is specified. I had it written down here. No, that's the other one. I don't have the specific. Where's my? Got so much paperwork here. Here we go.
Section 504.15, William, if I may.
504.15 of our ordinance, which speaks to marijuana compassion centers and retail stores as such. Since we're finding that it is authorized by that particular ordinance, it seems obvious that since they've met the burden of proof that it's going to be a well-run operation, I think that we have to go forward with the approval. The board finds that the special use meets all the criteria set forth in the subsection of this ordinance authorizing such special use. I might add that the planning board has already approved it. They put 13 restrictions associated with this petition forward, and the Winding Road organization has agreed to adhere to those 13 specific requests. The board finds that granting of the special use permit will not alter the general character of the surrounding area or impair the intent or purpose of this ordinance or the comprehensive plan of the town. In so doing, the board has considered whether or not satisfactory provisions and arrangements have been or will be made concerning, but not limited to, the following matters associated. We've considered parking, we've considered security, we've considered what else? The actual look, landscaping, etc. And it all seems to be an improvement over to what is presently there at the moment. And so I think we have to go forward. In terms of ingress and egress to the lot and to the existing structure itself, there seems to be tight controls associated with that. We had some extensive discussion associated with the parking. The parking associated, there's going to be 165 parking slots associated with the entire structure that is there, but the structure is not limited just to this proposed petition. There's also some other businesses there which will be competing for parking, but it seems that it should be appropriate that this particular business will have its share of people parking. And they are located at the most southern end of the structure. And so the present business that's there is Yankee Travel, and most people who go to Yankee Travel park down at that one end. And I would expect that the patients that coming into this business will park if they come into that. If they do come by car, will park down at that end. But of course, patients may be able to walk, or they may come by some other mode of transportation, which might not impinge on the parking itself. Off-street parking and loading areas are required. And there is going to be a loading area. It's going to be at the back of the structure. It's going to be secure. Patients will not be allowed to go to the back of the area. Whether patients will be allowed to park behind the structure, it's probably not necessary to consider that, because that's a street back there, Holly Street, and most patients will probably park in front of the structure itself. Trash storage and delivery areas with particular reference to the items. These items have been considered. There's going to be a separate secure place to put the trash associated with this. There's going to be a basement which will be secure. The building itself used to be a bank, Old Colony Bank. I've been around here long enough that I actually dealt with Old Colony Bank, didn't realize that they had a basement down there. But I assume that's where all the money went. And there's probably a good safe there left over from that bank. And it seems like it'd be a very secure place. There's no way to get down to that basement as far as I know, having been in that building on a number of occasions, associated not only with the bank itself that was there, but with Yankee Travel as such. And so it seems like that it's going to be a very secure operation with the office down there, and where the marijuana is mainly going to be stored, and any cash or receipts that come in will be located down there. As far as utilities, there's going to be a bathroom that patients will be allowed to utilize, but that bathroom or lavatory will be located in the back of the retail store, and will not be associated with any of the security that in other words, they will not be able to get to any other parts of the retail operation itself. I don't believe there's going to be any signs or exterior. There will be exterior lighting. There has to be. That's required in that particular situation. But I don't think. Are you going to have any signs?
We were going to work with the town, Mr. Rosen, if any. I don't believe that they had any intention of placing signs at this point, but if there were a desire to do that, to help with the direction of the customers to that particular door, they would be working with the town to make sure that they met and complied with all of the requirements.
Okay.
For signage.
Okay, so associated with signs, it doesn't look like there's going to be any as such. And as a result, I move approval of this petition.
Okay, the motion was made by Mr. Rosen. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Charkowik. Any other discussion?
This is Amy. Go ahead, Rick.
Yes.
I'm probably gonna ask the same question, Amy.
The conditional approval.
Yeah, conditional approval.
Yep.
Well,
We'll
you
note in the
wanna-
motion. Yeah, let's note in the motion, please, that under 908, it's going to be a conditional approval with a 2-year expiration date since they need a license from DBR in order to operate.
I will amend my motion to that, in that regard.
Yeah, I would ask
Okay.
one last thing, one question. In your motion, Mr. Rosen, you made reference to the conditions of approval in the planning board's advisory opinion. Are you making those conditions of approval of this motion as well?
Yes,
The 13 conditions? Okay.
yes.
So, Mr. Charkowik, do you second the extension per our regulations as well as the 13 conditions by the planning board?
I do, yes.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Rosen,
Aye.
Mr. Charkowik,
Aye.
Mr. Daniels,
Aye.
Mr. Jurzak,
Aye.
Mr. Cagnetta, aye. Motion passes. Good luck.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you
Chairman.
so very much,
Good
Mr.
evening.
Chairman and members of the
Thank
board
you very much.
for your patience with the presentation and for your sound questioning. Thank you very, very much.
Thank
Well
you.
done. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Was there anything else that we needed to go over? Jess, I know, didn't we pass the minutes from the past 2 sessions already?
We haven't done the minutes from last week yet, but they're not done yet, so
Okay.
we don't have any minutes. It would just be attendance for the April meetings. It would be April 21st and more than likely April 28th.
I've also got one quick thing after we do the attendance.
Okay. I plan on being here for both. Or being Zoom.
Be here.
I will be available.
Yeah, Rick Jurzak, I'll be
You
there.
know,
Great. And Amy, what was that?
Yeah, sure. I know it's the second meeting of the month and it feels like we've been having 2 meetings every month as a standard operating procedure. Could we discuss something very quickly? And that is what I have been intending to bring up with the board regarding the difference between recusals and abstaining. And this is really following up on the decision we received in the fall on that Donatelli zoning decision.
Yeah, please. I know we wanted to talk about this.
Okay, yeah, so if we could get the board's consensus to discuss it very briefly. Again, this is just for discussion and information. And there's nothing here that, that this is an executive session, this is open session. So what I wanted to discuss with the board, and by the way, that Donatelli matter is still in somewhat limbo. After the decision came out, I conferred with Attorney John Kenyon. I don't know whether he is going to seek to bring that back before the board. So the answer is I'm not sure yet. And I think I've reached out to him semi-recently after the fall, and I'll find out again, but I think it may not be going forward. We'll have to see. But as you know, or maybe Casey, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this one.
I read the opinion.
Okay, so I think it boils down to perhaps I had not clearly articulated in the meeting the rule on abstaining, which is zoning board members cannot abstain, right? We need 5 members sitting to hear a matter before the board. So you hear it, and then at the end, you can't say, I'm going to sit this one out. If you want to recuse on a matter, or I should really say, if you need to recuse, that decision needs to be made before the hearing begins. And it should be made before the hearing begins. Otherwise, you're participating in a matter on which you're conflicted under the Code of Ethics. So if there's ever a question about whether you need to recuse, clearly you know that if you own property in the notice area, you have to recuse. If a relative owns property in the notice area, you must recuse. If a business associate is coming before the board or a family member, you must recuse. If it's just a friend, there is no ethical requirement to recuse. You may, however, want to recuse to avoid any appearance of impropriety, keeping in mind that the Code of Ethics sets forth a minimum standard, right? You can always kind of go above and beyond that. Although, and it hasn't been a problem here at all. I would just say we wouldn't want to be recusing so much that we running into quorum problems. So recusal is separate from abstaining. Sometimes in legislative bodies, right, like the town council, a member may abstain from a vote, and that reflects, you know, a political decision. I'm going to sit this one out. And that's perfectly okay for someone on the council, but being on the zoning board, it's not proper to abstain from a vote. Usually, you know, the alternates are here in case they need to vote on something, but usually they know at the, you know, they know when the hearing begins whether or not they're going to be active voting members for that matter. Sometimes if a matter is continued from month to month and it turns out one of the original 5 members can't make the second continued date, then the alternate who was present at the first meeting becomes a voting member. But either way, they know it at the beginning of that second night. I think one is the idea that we want the alternates to know when they're voting. You're always paying attention and participating, of course, but I think there's maybe a heightened level of participation when you're a voting member. But really, it's the idea that if you, at the conclusion of all the testimony, if you feel like you can't make a decision, I would say that probably means you should vote against the application, because remember, it's the applicant's burden of proof to satisfy you. So that being said, we all know what happened with the Donatelli application, right? At the end, Mr. Rosen indicated that he wanted to abstain. I indicated abstention wasn't proper. That application failed to gain passage on a 3-2 vote, and it was remanded to the Superior Court. I think there was a real miscommunication on 2 levels, and you know, it's unfortunate that we don't get to go up in front of the judges on these zoning appeals. They're 9 times out of 10, they're decided on the record, right? There's no argument, there's no conference. So I guess my point is, I will try to be clearer with all of you about what the rules are. I think it's understood now. I think we all know what the rule is. If anyone has any questions, you feel free to contact me, and feel free to bring it up now, although it's getting late, I know.
Let me just clarify one thing.
Mhm.
I eventually voted along with Tom Daniels to deny the petition.
Mhm.
I was a new member,
Yep.
relatively new,
Yeah, it may have been your second meeting.
and being a URA professor who had just recently retired, I was still used to dealing with my fellow faculty members. And so I slipped of a tongue. I said I was conflicted.
Mm.
That was the thing that teed you off, Amy.
That's putting it, that's overstating it.
And then I said I wanted to abstain, which was probably what I shouldn't have done. At any rate, I understand the rules now,
Mhm.
and it won't happen again. But I did have one question.
Sure.
At the last meeting, I think Rick had to recuse himself because
Yes.
he was in a butter.
Mhm.
And do you have to recuse if you're within the 200 yard? What is it, 200 feet?
Yeah. When you're within the notice area, you must recuse. When you own property, you or a family member, and you won't find that rule written in the Code of Ethics. The actual rule is you can't participate in a matter in which you may stand to gain or lose financially. And there's a presumption, and this, this goes back decades, that property within the notice area may be affected. Now, whether, maybe it's something that will raise your property value. You might think, well, why should I have to recuse? Maybe it's something that will diminish the property value. It doesn't matter. If you own property within the notice area, you're considered conflicted. You've got to sit that one out.
Okay. You asked me to recuse with respect to the property that came up with Parkwood because I live off of Parkwood. But I wasn't, that was at the far, the property that we were considering was at the far end of the property. And that's why I'm asking this question, because I'm further than 200 yards. I'm probably a quarter of a mile.
So you didn't get a notice?
But I did recuse, but I didn't get a notice, no.
Yeah, that's another thing where, and I kind of remember that when I think it was brought up at the meeting and I didn't quite know all the facts. In that situation, I will always err on the side of advising the board member to recuse.
Okay.
But anytime you've got an issue, call me. It's nice to get a heads up before the meeting just so I can clarify what the situation is. Sometimes, if you're right outside the notice area, you might want to recuse just again to avoid that, appearance of impropriety, even though it's not technically required.
One other question. We don't have any alternates, do we, right now?
We will.
Immediate moment, no. Yeah. By next meeting, we should.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I apologize for that video failure that we tried town council.
And Jess and Jamie and Rob, one thing we should think about too, because quorum has been an issue for us and turnover a little bit. It might be too late for this year, but maybe next year we should think about seeking General Assembly's permission to add a third alternate.
Yeah, I would think that. I live in Charlestown and I know Charlestown has 3 alternates. It's like,
yeah,
just that extra person would be nice.
Yeah, would. Okay.
So,
I'd be
Are
happy
we
to help.
looking, are we gonna have 2 alternates next week, you said?
No, so once you speak with the council, Casey, the assumption is you will get moved up to member, and then Susan Walsh, who was appointed, but kind of in like a limbo position, will become alternate number 1. So we'll still have the 1 vacancy.
Yeah, so on that note, Casey, if, because I know I need to follow up with you, if you can attend the 12th, the town council meeting on the 12th.
Yeah, I should be able to do that. I just have to double check.
Yeah, so it's probably 5 to 10 minutes starting at 7. But we'll send a letter and an email to you.
Okay.
Thanks for
Well,
indulging
thank
me
you.
on that discussion.
Motion to
No,
adjourn. Thank you, Amy. Wonderful job as always. And William, no foul committed. All good.
That's right.
No
That's
harm,
right.
no foul.
Yeah.
That's
Okay,
right.
thank you.
No, it's fine. No, we've gone to court from me before too, so. There was a motion made to adjourn. Unless there's anything else, can we get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Aye. See you guys
Have a
next
good
month.
night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
The next
Sure.
meeting is April 21st?
Yes, the 21st and the 28th.
Okay.
Good
Got
night,
it.
everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye-bye.